Hey, change makers, welcome to another episode of live coaching here on LinkedIn and across your favorite social media channels, including YouTube. And I am so thrilled and honored on this Empower Hour to welcome my mentor and my friend, Roger Pierce, a excellent business expert who is the host of the Unsure Entrepreneur podcast and who loves to talk about entrepreneurship as a career choice and what's involved in running a small business. One of Canada's top small business experts, Roger is an author, a speaker, and an entrepreneur trainer who has founded 14 small businesses over the past 25 years and has brands that hire him to produce small business content for their websites, including Bank of Montreal, Scotiabank, FedEx, Rogers, and MasterCard and Sage accounting software. Roger lives in Toronto with his wife and two children and one dog. I'm going to ask you about that dog in a minute. And can be reached through his website, The Unsure Entrepreneur, and rogerpierce.ca. Roger, welcome. I am so thrilled and tickled pink to have you here today to talk about why we should all be entrepreneurs. And I'm sure we're both chuckling about that because we know that it's not all fancy times in entrepreneurship. It's a lot of gruel, but it's also very rewarding. So yeah, really thrilled and honored to have you. You're my mentor. You're responsible for the fact that I was even able to get my business going, Women in Biz Network, all those years ago, about 12 years now. So I'm really thrilled to have you talk to us about entrepreneurship. So why don't we dive in and start by just telling us a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey and about your new podcast, Unsure Entrepreneur.
Well, for sure, Lee. Always great to see you, and thank you for those flattering words. You are, as I said earlier, my favorite entrepreneur. And let's talk today, and hopefully get some other people some help with their journey, which I know you're keen to do. And that's really what I'm all about, Lee. It's trying to help people become entrepreneurs, become better entrepreneurs, helping small business owners. You and I have known each other for a long time. I've trained, I've coached, I provide small business content for big brands. And now I've got a podcast, as you mentioned, which I'm really having fun with, called The Unsure Entrepreneur. You can find it on any of your favorite streaming platforms. I know we're going to get you on the podcast, hopefully this summer, Lee, to talk about your journey. But in the show, I'm interviewing small business owners. I'm interviewing people who work at resource organizations like we hope to get someone from the League of Innovators on there. We're going to get people on there from Enterprise Toronto, organizations that help entrepreneurs, maybe in Canada and the US. Also going to interview some industry experts. Got one I interviewed last week, Brian Moran from the US, big small business expert down there. So this kind of thing to help entrepreneurs get some insights into what it's really like and what it's all about. And not sugarcoat entrepreneurship. As you mentioned, there's lots of dips and valleys as well as the highs. I call them the dizzying highs and the terrifying lows. So the show is all about providing some real life insights into entrepreneurship for people who are at the very beginning or early stages of their journey so they can decide if it's for them or not, right? Because look, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And we want to make sure that if you do go into it, you're aware of what you're getting into before you commit. So that's really what I'm all about. I just want to help entrepreneurs understand what they're in for and maybe give them some tips to succeed if they decide to pursue it. Now, you asked me earlier, why entrepreneurship? Number of reasons. Of course, I'm biased, but I think entrepreneurship provides a fuller life. I think entrepreneurship gives you the chance to really be your best self. You can identify your passion and pursue it. You can work on your skills. You can work on self-improvement. Look at all the things you've learned over your journey. You're definitely, I'm sure you'll agree, much more capable of a lot of things than you were, say, 20 years ago. So there's this chance for betterment. There's a chance for achieving your goals. Certainly the freedom, the flexibility. There's no income ceiling either. You can make as much money as you want, even though, in all fairness, as we know, entrepreneurs start off making very little because they're getting the business going. It's not like you see on in the media all the time. And, it's a chance to be with your family. Look at you. You're doing your podcast live from your cottage, chance to be flexible, chance to work the way you want. So, all these reasons and more. And above all else, too, you can serve other people, I think, best as an entrepreneur. Your organization can be built to help others, whether that's providing them with a killer app or providing coaching and training services, or like you, Lee, bringing people together in community and helping them achieve their own goals as a collective. These are all some of the great reasons to become an entrepreneur. And I often tell people, look, all things considered, if you think you've got it in you, and we'll help you make that determination in the book and on the podcast. If you think you've got it in you, why not give it a try? Because I really would hate someone to end up old and look back and think, I wish I had tried my own small business. I wish I had pursued that idea. Having that regret, to me, is something we want to make sure people avoid.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's life is short, and I didn't get a chance to ask you if this was okay to even bring up, but since we're talking about life being short and about the importance of doing what you're passionate about, maybe you could tell us about your situation several years ago where you landed in the hospital and were, on life support. I think that's correct. You were on life support for quite a bit of time and then took almost a year to recover. So I think you, more than anybody, can really illustrate the importance of ensuring that you're living your life as you intend to and not just running on autopilot, which a lot of us end up doing when we're in those sandwich years, family and aging parents and busy lives and everybody else's priorities. And sometimes we neglect our own. So maybe you could tell us, a little bit about that journey and about maybe the defining moments that it may have brought out for yourself.
Sure, nothing snaps one into focus like a critical illness. I can laugh about it now. Yeah, I was stricken with a septic shock about 2000 and was it 2017, and rushed to the hospital and hospitalized for a better part of 2 months and was in a coma for a while and lots of nasty stuff going on, organs shutting down. My wife was having a panic about the whole thing, but I got to thank her, of course, for helping to bring me through all that and making sure all the doctors were doing what they were supposed to do. And yeah, you don't know what's happening to you at the time, but then after it's over and you can start to regain consciousness, you start to think, wow, I need to start really focusing my energies on what I need to accomplish in this life, because as I've just almost proven, there's not so much of it in some cases, and perhaps it's more fragile than we think. And like I said earlier, better to have entrepreneurship on your checklist before that inevitability might happen where you can't pursue your dreams or something interrupts your plans. So it was really an eye-opening experience and a horrifying one for sure. But in a way, you look at the positives and think, okay, well, now I've got that done. Hopefully I'm free of any major ailments for a while. And I can focus on self-employment and building up small business and doing all the things I love. It certainly focuses you on your family as well, too, right? And making sure you stop and honor those times with your kids. My daughter just graduated grade 12 and my son just graduated grade 6. So we're still very much in the school system. But, as an entrepreneur, I can knock off early and go catch my son play baseball tonight, right? I can finish up the work later on or put it off till tomorrow if I want. Taking a family vacation. If I had a cottage, I would be up where you are, Lee, trying to blend work with home life, trying to balance those things out. These are some of the great benefits of being an entrepreneur. But I think when you get ill, it makes you just appreciate those moments you have with your family and what you do have even more.
Yeah, I think that, wow, I can't even imagine what an experience like that would be to come through the other side and be able to have more clarity on things that are important, like family and like, really what you want to do with your life. And because we spend so many hours in our day working, it's important that one, we have freedom over our what we can do, and we're not, you know, always having to answer to someone. And you can make decisions that are best for your health and well-being, and also for, your life in general. Um, Patrick McCauley is saying, "Well said. It's all about having balance," and I agree. I think that balance is important, and I'm assuming that that really became clear to you after that experience, that dreadful experience.
And a couple other takeaways too. Again, this is all good stuff for a podcast. Having insurance, I, entrepreneurship is full of risks, you know? So, what can you do to help mitigate those risks? And a lot of people don't get into entrepreneurship because they're afraid of the risks: financial risk, emotional risk, fear of failure. And so, what can I do to help mitigate some of these downsides? And having insurance is one of them. In case we get sick, I had critical illness insurance, and that helped to defray the costs of not being able to work for about 6 months. So thank God somebody suggested I got that, my insurance broker, many years ago. The other thing that helps too is having, working partners, whether they're official partners or maybe alliance partners, who can help carry on some of your responsibilities while you're sick. That's helpful. Making sure those clients are served. Clients understand when you're ill, but hey, they've got their own check boxes too. So hopefully the work can continue through some of your surrogates. Have you got those types of systems in place, or employees who can keep the business running while you're not sick or you're sick? One of the tests of any entrepreneur's success in small business is having a business they can step away from, whether it's for illness or for vacation. Hopefully it's for vacation. But if the business can run without you, then you've built it properly and you develop systems and you've trained your people well. That's the end goal. And a business that has systems, of course, is much easier to sell one day if that's part of your plan. So I just love talking about this stuff because even in terrible situations like getting sick, there are some lessons for entrepreneurs out there about what we need to do to protect ourselves, what we can take away from those bad situations.
That's good to know. That I didn't know if you had critical insurance. It's something that I've thought about over the years too, but I haven't actually done that. So it's a good reminder to really have to know that you have to kind of put your business in order, because if you can't be in the business, it still needs to exist. So that's an interesting thought, and an important one for everyone to consider, with just having that security and safety net. Uh, so
And,
so
and
really
if you,
important.
if you, and if you don't have the insurance, you can of course build your own safety net by socking away 6 months worth of expenses, right? An emergency fund.
Hmm.
That's another way to help mitigate the risk of entrepreneurship. So if you get sick like I did, or there's an issue with your health, or maybe sales just dry up and you're like, oh my God, I got to tap into my emergency reserves, or something like a pandemic hits. It's nice to have those emergency reserves. So, we got to look at entrepreneurship from how am I going to look after the downsides? Too many entrepreneurs get into it, and I'm guilty of this, hoping for, expecting nothing but upside, right? Sales are going to roll in. There's big customers right around the corner. I'm going to be a dot-com millionaire in a couple of years. Doesn't always work that way. But if you look after the downside, the upside usually looks after itself. So address those fears, address those risks, address the disadvantages of entrepreneurship, protect you and your family where possible. And then to me, the rest is all golden. You're gonna have that confidence to go after those big goals, and things are gonna look up and up and up.
So we have a question that's come in from Rachel who wants to know, how do you know if you're cut out for entrepreneurship?
Ah, very good question. Very good question.
Hmm.
There are success traits, characteristics of entrepreneurs. I've written about them. I'll give you some of the top ones.
Hmm.
There are tests, online tests you can take, aptitude tests to see if you've
Oh.
got, you know, some of the BDC Bank, BDC.ca has got some good ones on their website.
Hmm.
So I'll give you a quick rundown of the top entrepreneurial success traits right now. Number one being communication skills,
Mm.
which you've got handily, Lee. You're a good writer. I know you write professionally. You're an excellent communicator. You teach, for goodness sakes. You're a community builder. You can present and persuade and communicate effectively on anything you choose to talk about, and those are exceptionally important skills for an entrepreneur. It's not all about standing up and public speaking. It's about just being able to get people behind your idea and your message, right? Whether it's pitching to a customer, getting your employees on board a strategy, convincing investors to give you money, convincing the bank to give you a line of credit, talking to the media, as our friend Patrick McCulley helps companies do so well. Patrick over at Point Man News Creation. Shout out to my friend Patrick. So all these things are important. Communication skills aren't just about public speaking. It's about being able to persuade people and get them behind your idea. Second most important trait, really, I think, would be some financial literacy skills and money management skills. Some of the basics, can you keep track of your finances, incoming and outgoing? You don't have to do your own books. Just be a bit of a money manager. Be a bit prudent in terms of your cash flow expectations, making sure more is coming in than coming out. Having an eye to finances, thinking of ways to do things more efficiently and less expensive. That's an important trait for entrepreneurs to have. And confidence, confidence in your own abilities. The tenacity to see something through. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to make sure that we get this thing through. Confidence in yourself and your abilities and the people around you, that's very important too. Other soft skills too. Selling skills are very important. I hate to say it, and a lot of people who are looking at entrepreneurship shy away from it because of the selling required. Too, you sold to big brands, you sold to institutions, you sold to entrepreneurs. There's a lot of selling involved. Might not be the classic, going into a sales meeting like Mad Men and making a hard pitch, but it could be just emailing someone or picking up the phone or writing a proposal. So a lot of selling because, like I said earlier, your idea is not going to sell itself. You've got to get out there and convince people, persuade people to come and work for you or work with you and buy from you. So these are some of the traits I think of successful entrepreneurs. But number one is always communication skills and confidence, selling skills, persistence. That's important too, right? Never giving up, and an ability to learn too. Because look, you can't know it all going into your own business. You might be good at one thing. Maybe it's writing. Maybe you're not so great at selling or the bookkeeping. Well, that's okay. Give yourself a break. Nobody has all those skills mastered. And being an entrepreneur, you've got to wear dozens of hats: marketing, sales, accounting, human resources, tech. The printer runs out of ink, you got to replace it, right? So don't beat yourself up. You're going to learn those skills over time. But that's one of the joys of entrepreneurship because you can, invest in learning, take courses, take training, read books, listen to podcasts, and work with mentors and work with other entrepreneurs. So you can learn things that perhaps you don't know. It really is a joy being an entrepreneur.
I love that you brought up mentorship. So, as I've said to you, you are a mentor to me and you're instrumental in giving me the courage to pursue a business path, of sponsorship and tips on how to land sales and just to give me the confidence that I could do it. And it's so much easier to be an entrepreneur if you have a community of cheerleaders and also people that will be honest with you too. You don't want to have everybody, you know, telling you what you want to hear. You want people to be honest with you and to give you guidance and helpful feedback, sometimes things that you don't always want to hear. But having that mindset is really important to be resilient. I think resiliency is a really important aspect of entrepreneurship,
Mm,
because there's high highs and there's low lows. So it's like getting that endorphin rush is definitely much more intense than when you work for a company than when you do it yourself. So I think
mm,
that really, for me, has stood out. It's like you feel really on top of the world when things are going well, but on the opposite end, you can feel really down if things are slowing down, and you question. Sometimes people will really, I think, get caught up with their personal brand and their business being a part of them, and then when things aren't going well, then it's easy to internalize it that there's something wrong with you.
mm,
Whereas you wouldn't feel that way within a company. If a company was having a downturn, you wouldn't necessarily associate it with it's your fault. But when you're the entrepreneur, there can be a lot of blame and shame, I think. So I think the mental health aspect of entrepreneurship is really important,
mm.
to really take good care of your mental health. I noticed the BDC is now offering free counseling to entrepreneurs.
Oh, really? Mm.
Yeah, 3 sessions. Through a online health, mental health association, which is great. But
What do you do, Lee, when you're feeling those lows?
yeah, oh, well, I find counseling really helps. I'm actually working with a therapist who is an entrepreneur as well now. So that really, I think it really helps me to talk to someone who's a therapist that also understands how complicated entrepreneurship can be. So I think therapy for me has been instrumental. I also think um, not being afraid to reach out to someone and tell them when you're feeling really low. I know that I've shed tears on phone calls with you, like having those people that you're not embarrassed to go to if you feel ashamed of, how your business is doing. What else? And I think that understanding that the business is not you and that you are valuable no matter what, and being compassionate, having self compassion. And then lastly, I think it's being mission based.
Mm,
I learned that I went through what I called an entrepreneurial depression
mm,
about 7 years ago, and I was doing really well. The business was booming with lots of sponsors, but I felt like it was this big popularity contest amongst the other women's organizations, and we were very collaborative with other women's organizations, but I just felt like I just felt like it was so difficult to show your value against other companies that are similar to you.
mm.
And then in the end, what I did to turn it around for myself is I just focused on mission and social impact, and not, being so driven by the profit, like seeing the bigger picture of the fact that you can grow as an entrepreneur, that you're become more talented, more multi-talented. I think, as you mentioned, you end up with skills that you wouldn't have never had you not gone into entrepreneurship. So I definitely think I'm more confident. I take more risks in a positive way. So I think that the negatives of the mental health aspect of it outweigh, or sorry, are definitely, the positive things have been more impactful than the negative things overall.
I hope you give yourself proper credit for the impact you have had
Oh,
on
well, thank you.
entrepreneurs. My God, the Women in Biz Network, you got it up to what, 35,000, 40,000 members? You've made a huge impact on entrepreneurs. And now you're helping young people, aspiring entrepreneurs, students. Give yourself a little pat, more than a pat in the back, Lee. You've done a lot for people.
Well, thank you. And that's why the podcast is for change makers, because I really relate to change makers. And I believe that we're all put here for finding a finding more finding more purpose
Hmm.
in our lives. And so I definitely think that if you can find the impact in a career, it will really help. Uh, so when you focus on having impact, then you're less hung up on the finances and stuff like that. So I don't panic nearly as much as I used to. So that's really helped. We've got some more questions that have come in. Um, how important is sales ability as an entrepreneur? Patrick wants to know. And should an entrepreneur think of having partners?
Mm. Good questions. Well, sales ability, and I know Patrick can sell. It's very important. It's very important. Look, as you start your business, customers are not going to beat a path to your door. The expression "nothing sells itself" comes to mind. No matter how genius or brilliant, and I've seen this in so many new entrepreneurs. Oh, I don't need to worry about sales. People are going to come and buy from me. Even if you developed a cure for cancer, you'd have to go out and convince people to buy the drug. Trust me, nothing sells itself. So be prepared to sell. If you don't have those sales skills, then what can you do? Give up? Nope, never give up. You can, of course, take training to get better. Lots of sales training courses out there, including from our colleague Louis Trahan over at lastminutetraining.com. You can, of course, hire a salesperson to work for you, or maybe develop a sales team. That's expensive, but you know what? It might pay for itself easily over the next couple of years because you're going to make money while other people are working for you. You can bring in a partner, which is also one of the questions I see coming up there, who has sales skills. Happens all the time. And those are the best business relationships. Maybe one is really good at the finance and one is really good at selling. Or one is really good at content. The other one's very good at the tech. Whatever. Look for that kind of synergy. Usually doesn't make much sense if two people starting a business together have the exact same or pretty close to the exact same skills. You need to look for someone who can augment what you're maybe not so good at. And if that's selling, then great. Bring on a sales partner. I fulfilled that role in a past business relationship. You can also sell online, right? That takes the pressure off direct selling if you're afraid of those classic sales pitches. Or you can work with affiliates and do strategic selling that way through other organizations that maybe have the same customers you're after, and see if you can work out an arrangement for them to introduce your products or services. So other people are representing you up there in the industry. But bottom line is, for the first couple of years of your business, expect to do 80% of your time on sales and marketing for sure, right? Because you got to get the word out there. You've got to get the brand known. You're building a brand. You've got to convince people to buy from you. You've got to get cash flow and big time. And that comes from sales and from selling. So definitely plan to do that consistently and for at least the first couple of years.
Yeah, you're right about that. And pitching, I think I'm thinking about Pat here with pitching,
Mm.
being in PR and media outreach, the skills to know how to pitch yourself and pitch your product or service in a very tight and cohesive way is also really important. So those pitching skills also can really help to get more eyes on the prize, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so more questions have come in. So this is awesome. Rachel wants to know: is it important to have your own business persona?
Mm. I was talking the other day to a fellow on the podcast about the author Michael Gerber, which is probably the first book I'd recommend to any new entrepreneur, called The E-Myth, E-Myth, The Entrepreneur Myth by Michael Gerber. It's several decades old now, but it's a small business Bible. And he talks about three personas that every entrepreneur has and how we end up tripping over them if we're not careful. The three personas are the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician, right? So the entrepreneur, salesperson, usually the leader, drums up the investors, creates the brand, go, 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 go out there building the company, loves that role, right? That's the entrepreneur. Manager role, someone doesn't need to be in the spotlight, maybe doesn't like sales as much, could do it, but would rather build operations and build systems and have things run, right? That's the manager, looking after things, making sure the train runs on time. And then there's the technician, right? Maybe the person who makes the product or fulfills the service. That could be someone who is, as Michael uses in his book, bakes the pies to sell in the pie shop. That's the technician. So you got to figure out what kind of persona are you, right? And again, no one can have all those skills. You can't be all three. You might get by, but you need to delegate your weaknesses and play to your strengths. Whether that means taking on a partner who is a good manager, if you're the entrepreneur type, or vice versa, or maybe hiring someone who's a good manager, or maybe hiring that salesperson. There's a number of ways you can play it, but really know who you are and what you're good at doing when you get into business, because that way you can accommodate it, and definitely read that book, The E-Myth. I hope that helps, Rachel.
Yeah, and I also recommend Traction by forgot Gino Wickman. Traction. So they talk about the entrepreneurial operating system, and I found that to be really helpful as well. And the whole idea is that you should have daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and every 3 years rocks for your business, which is like you always should be measuring something, like, and deciding what it is that you need to measure, and then using that as a barometer or a system to decide if you're going in the right direction. Um, you always have to be setting goals and then figuring out a way to make them measurable.
Good tip. Good.
And in terms of personal brand, I would also say that, and I joke around about my journey with this because I've dabbled in different businesses and different approaches. And I always say the only person or the only brand I can 100% say I'll continue to be is myself. So I think bringing your own personal brand to your business is a good one because you never know when you're going to sell it. I think Julie Cole from Mabel's Labels is a great example of someone who's done really well in building her own personal brand because, as she said, talking about labels is really boring. So it's important to, share your own story in your entrepreneurship journey. What made you want to pursue this, and do some storytelling around how you personally connect to why you're in business. And I remember you years ago telling me that I should secure my own URL, which I've continued to do. So I always will have my own personal brand because I want to do more than just women in biz. So I think it's really important to have your own personal brand and your business brand, meaning like if you have like a brand outside of your own personal brand. So I think that
Sure.
can be very helpful. And I think you're a good example of that too. You're Roger Pierce, business expert.
Well, and for many years, I've always hid behind a company name. And on
Mhm.
that note, there's a really great book about this too, of course. I keep talking about books, but Built to Sell, builttosell.com by our friend, I think you know him, John Warlow,
Mhm.
written several books. And it's all about designing your business to be sold from day one.
Yeah.
Even if you don't end up selling it 5, 10 years down the road and you keep it, you should design it as if you want to sell it because that means you're building systems and operations and you can step away and the business can make money. Or if you get sick or you want to take a vacation, the business can still make money because it operates without you. Like you talked about Gino Wickman, the operating system.
Mhm.
So important. McDonald's does not, wing it with the time the fries are in the fryer. It's down to a split second timer. This is when you take the fries out, right? Everything
Yes.
there is highly systematized, and that's why they grew to be the biggest restaurant brand in the world. Operations and systems, and we can do that too. as
Mhm.
entrepreneurs. It's not beyond our
Process.
reach, right?
Process driven.
Process driven, yeah, and measuring things as you talked about, so you
Mhm.
know you're improving, putting systems in place. It can be as simple as writing down all the things you do. I mean, think about all the things you do to prepare for this podcast, Lee, right? It
Mhm.
takes an effort to write them down, but once you do that, even if it's in a 3 ring binder, congratulations, you've got an operations manual for your podcast. So
Exactly.
you could bring in someone to maybe do some of that for you, like a helper or an assistant. So these are the benefits of writing things down and making sure we have our systems in place. And that's again part of the joy of building a business, isn't it?
Mm.
Developing better ways to do what you do, to accomplish what you love, to help people, and to get better at it, and of course, make some money.
I'm glad that you said that because I do get like a high off of continuous improvement, but sometimes my need for continuous improvement can actually set me back. And I'll just tell a quick story. This weekend, I've switched over to this very new fancy platform that allows the website to sort of have Facebook like uh, s- capabilities, like
Okay.
different groups. You can create different groups on it. You do all these things, but it didn't look exactly like the template that I bought, and so I was like, it was kind of bugging me. So over the weekend, I decided that I had some time, so I decided I was going to switch over to another, like to the system that allowed me to have it look exactly like the template. But what I didn't realize was that it wiped out all of my content, including all of my blog posts, everything. Now, if that had happened to me years ago, I would have been in a full out panic, like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And I can remember my web designer calling her at, first thing on a Sunday morning, I've wrecked my website because I just couldn't, it had to be perfect. So in the end, I was able to get a backup from like 3 in the morning the night before. So it was perfect. I lost nothing and it got reinstalled. But sometimes I think that we get a little bit obsessed over things that mean something to us, but probably should have a manager in our head saying, no, that's not important. More important is selling,
Mm.
you know? So I think that can set us back, is like getting too obsessed with things being perfect.
Hey, you can.
But
There's lots of
anyway,
lots of rabbit holes for us to
yes.
go down and get distracted, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. We have
Yeah.
another question from Naomi Street Food on YouTube, who would like to know what the keys to succeed in social entrepreneurship.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think, make a plan for starters, right? What you want to achieve, who you want to help, what is your company going to do or your organization. Go and get some funding to help you get to those early stages, whether that's from personal savings or some investors or some backers, maybe a loan. Some of the traditional steps to starting up any kind of business. But I think, like you talked about too earlier, the social entrepreneurship, something that's very personal and mission driven and trying to
Hmm.
change the world. There was an organization, I was talking to a woman online earlier today, and she's got a startup organization that helps people who can't find jobs and need to start a business to make a living. I guess they're underemployed. And so, great example of what I would call social entrepreneurship. So they're raising money. They got all these amazing success stories for entrepreneurs who have started their businesses and are now supporting themselves through their own business because they wouldn't otherwise be able to do it. Fantastic mission. So have that really clear. Once you're clear about your mission, people are going to rally behind you because they go,
Hmm.
yeah, I can support that cause. I know exactly what you're trying to achieve. How can I get involved? How can I help? And all of a sudden, you feel this momentum. So maybe that's a couple of small pieces of advice. A related note, too, just to add, a lot of entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurship or otherwise, are afraid of sharing their idea, right? You probably get this a lot, Lee. Oh, I've
Hmm.
got this idea. I've got to keep it hidden because I don't want someone to steal it. I think the opposite is true. Share your idea openly. No one's going to steal it. Trust me. unless it's a patented invention or something. But share your idea. Hey, look, I've got this crazy idea to start up a chicken farm in Northern Ontario. And all of a sudden people go, oh, I love chickens. I'll buy your eggs. That's maybe a silly example, but as soon as you communicate it and what you want to do, people are going to get behind you. Yeah, I know someone who can become your supplier. Yeah, I know someone who has some land. All of a sudden people are going to help you to achieve your business because you shared it. I think there's more to benefit than to lose
Mhm.
by being open and honest with your plans.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think that, having a board too, I think any business
Mm,
really can have a diversity-driven board, because you want to look at a problem from different perspectives to make sure that you're not missing a gap, and your board can support you, advocate for you, help you make decisions, give you access to skills that you wouldn't have normally. So like Women in Biz Network, one of the things that we've done from a social entrepreneurship perspective is, one, we're not driven by status, like, oh, you have to have so much money in order to join our organization, or you know we try to eliminate barriers,
mm,
and we have a mentorship board that has a lawyer, a life coach, a financial expert, all of, so we tried to kind of have a holistic approach to having support from various human resources, all of the areas that you really need to succeed. So, I think that really helps. And I love that Terrence Morris shared on YouTube that an abundance mindset is also very helpful. And I do think that is fabulous, fabulous advice, because some of us who maybe suffered from trauma in our life may have a scarcity mindset. I know that I have that. And the scarcity mindset has helped me in some ways to like not overspend and be careful in what risks that I'm taking. But I think sometimes that scarcity mindset has held me back. So thinking from that perspective of an abundance mindset is really, I think, valuable advice. So thanks for that, Terrence.
ab-
Yeah.
Absolutely. Knowing there's lots of things in the universe are going to come your way, right?
Hmm.
And it's out there,
Yes.
positivity, all that great stuff.
Yes. I used to think that that was woo woo. And I do believe now that every single time that I've put out to the world what I want, all of a sudden the signs and the people and the opportunities start to come in my direction. And that is, I really think, from having a clear mindset that it's okay to want what you want,
Mm.
and to just, I say, just offer it up to the world, right? Like, I'm meant to do this, and somehow the world is going to take me in the direction I need. And those uncanny opportunities just seem to come your way when you feel like you're almost ready to give up, right? And I think that that can be a, a brilliant sign that we shouldn't ignore. uh, I don't know if you've had those signs kind of come in your view when maybe you thought, like, I don't know if have you ever thought about not being an entrepreneur?
Oh, sure. There's the down times, of course. You think, why the hell am I doing doing this crazy life? I mean, the downsides of entrepreneurship, for those who don't know, are lumpy cash flow, especially during the first few years when you're trying to figure out what the heck your business is doing and getting your first customers. There's fear of failure. You have doubts all the time, like you're talking about. Is this going to work? Can I do this? Is this going to sell? What right do I have to be a business owner? A lot of people worry about the imposter syndrome in the first few years, fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Mhm.
There's when I talk about this in the book I'm writing, there's family risks too, relationship risks. What happens if I fail? I'm letting down my family, maybe financially as well as emotionally. My friends, what am I going to feel if I have a failed business around my friends? and the time that my business takes away from my relationships, whether they're friends or from immediate family. These are some of the downsides of entrepreneurship, let alone risking perhaps all of your life savings,
Yeah, just
maybe other
that.
people's money, and that too. Yeah, to throw that on the wagon. So there's lots of downsides. As I say often, look, entrepreneurship is going to take years of your life to get started. It's going to take tens of thousands of dollars of your money and most of your sanity. So you better carefully think and research about it before you commit, because there's a lot of downside, a lot of upside too. 70,
Yeah.
what is it? 80% of North American millionaires are self-employed. So a lot of
Mm.
upside too, right? On the other side, a lot of downside. $38,000 is the average salary for a solo entrepreneur in Canada. So a lot of downside too. So a lot of upside, a lot of downside, a lot of potential. Just know what you're getting into before you commit. And
Mhm.
that's why we called the podcast The Unsure Entrepreneur. Shout out to my friend Patrick McCauley, by the way, who came up with that name.
Ah,
And
well, he's so good at coming up with cool names.
he's terrific. He's an
Yeah.
excellent wordsmith.
Yes, he
And
is.
he came up with that name and we've run with it. And I think it just kind of speaks to what we're trying to talk about, in the show. So entrepreneurship is a fantastic voyage, fantastic journey. Just we got to be aware of what we're getting into so we can get the help we need, whether that's taking on
Mm.
a business partner, working with a mentor, saving up a bit more money, maybe starting really, really small. I know my friend Evan Carmichael, who you and I know,
Yep.
suggests you don't need to jump into this with both feet. Just start small, start a part time hustle, see if it
Mhm.
works, minimum viable product kind of thing,
Mhm.
farmers market booth on weekends kind of thing, even just a web page. Another friend of mine, Andrew Jenkins, he just launched a whole new service for his social media agency by experimenting with a page on his website. He said, I'm just going to put this product up here and see if anyone likes it. And guess what? He got some nibbles. So he decided to go ahead and roll with it after he did some beta testing. So these are the things we don't need to jump into with both our feet. We can just ease into entrepreneurship to help mitigate some of that risk.
Yeah, Andrew also is good at going to a lot of conferences and speaking at different events and great at networking. I think that has helped him. And I think we all need community. I know that
Mm,
you have some really great entrepreneurial friends and you all support each other. And it's so nice to see because it can be very isolating owning a business. So it's
absolutely.
important to confide in people just like you would in a work environment where you would have weekly meetings and you would discuss what are the challenges and how can we support each other. So if you are a team of one, there's only so much conversations you can have with yourself. Eventually you got to talk to someone else because the answers are going to get a little tired.
Yeah. You know what? Mentors doesn't have to be a formal thing. It could just be some business buds, some people you respect and admire. I mentioned my friend Patrick McCauley listing online, Andrew Jenkins, Louis Trahan, Albert Luke,
Hmm.
those guys. We get
Hmm.
together and we have a scotch and a cigar, Lee, and we talk about business and we share each other's woes and stories and triumphs and we try to help each other. And I
Yes.
think whether that's people doing it over a coffee or a lunch or just picking up the phone, it's
Hmm.
so important. When you talk to other small business owners, trust me, I guarantee you, they're going to be going through some of the same shit you're going through. They're going to be
Hmm.
going through the same problems you're going through, but together, you'll be able to solve those issues. You can solve anything by talking to your small business friends and sometimes your family. Maybe there's an entrepreneur in your family who you can reach out to, the uncle or the aunt or the cousin. Don't ignore
Hmm.
those connections as well. But as to your point, community, right? It takes a village to build your business. And the
It
more you
really
reach out,
does.
the easier it's going to be, right?
Hmm. Oh, 100%. I mean, that's actually why Women in Biz Network exists. If you remember, I think actually no, I think before I met you, my business was, or no, I think when I did meet you, it was also called this. So my original business was called Marketing for Moms. And it was supposed to be a marketing agency to help mom entrepreneurs because I had really young kids at the time. and I hosted an event, and you were my very first guest speaker because I hounded you for sponsorship. And you, after 4 or 5 times, you eventually called me back, and we had a great conversation, and you agreed to help me. You lent me equipment. You gave me a couple $100 for sponsorship, which you didn't have to do. And you started to encourage me to get other sponsors. And I ended up reaching out and getting Microsoft for that first event. It wasn't very much money at the time, but it was something. And that that event ended up segueing me into having a entrepreneurial business association for women, and so we switched the name to Women in Biz Network. So I think that's another
Mm.
takeaway is the power of the pivot. Sometimes the business doesn't go in the direction that you expected, and if it makes sense and you feel like it lines up with your values and what you love to do, then hey, that's okay. You can take it in a different direction than what you anticipated it would be. So I
It's
think
never
that's another lesson.
it's never a straight line, right? And you have to excuse me, you have to be open to ideas for sure, and things that come up and things you discover
Yeah.
along the way. The business you get into now, I guarantee you, is not going to be the one you're running 5 years from now,
Yeah.
because you go, oh, wow, look at that. Customers actually prefer us to provide this kind of service. And so you go there. And it's a little bit different from maybe what you thought you might be providing at the get
Mhm.
go. And
Yeah.
that's okay. It's a bit of a zigzag line, but as long as you're moving forward and growing and applying your skills and fulfilling your mission, right? Then I
Mhm.
think it's all right. We have to be open to it. This journey, there's lots of ways to get there.
Yes. Absolutely. So the way we always end our podcast at slash live stream, Empower Hour live stream, is we always ask, what are 3 things that someone who is considering entrepreneurship or is just getting started, what are 3 things that they could start working on now? Like, take action. Because I think that taking action is way more impactful than just thinking, right? There's only so much time to think. Eventually you must take action. So what are 3 things that our audience can do to start taking action?
Good question. And this is assuming that you have an idea, right,
Yeah,
in place.
sure.
We're past the ideation stage. As we said earlier, test the darn thing out, build a minimum viable product, test it. That doesn't have to cost a lot of money. That could be a web page like our friend Andrew Jenkins. That can be a farmer's market booth. It could be just trying to sell a few of whatever you propose to sell to friends and family, and maybe some non-family, just to make sure they're not biased. But test the darn thing out and go, this isn't going to work. There is no market for this product. It's the number one reason small business owners fail is they don't test the market. Like I
Mm,
said earlier, they think this is the hottest thing ever, and they jump into it, and they don't actually test whether someone will actually buy it and buy it for the price that they need to sell it at. That's the number one. And that comes down to oftentimes entrepreneurial inexperience. They just didn't think to do the testing and the minimum viable product thing. So what can you do in its simplest form to test your assumptions and try this concept or this idea out? If it's a service, put up a web page. If it's a product, build a little prototype or make a few samples and try to sell them. That'd be number one. Number two, take action. Make a plan. I am going to finish up that business plan by the end of the month. It doesn't have to be 30 pages, right, Lee? It can be 10 pages. And by the way, if you go to rogerpierce.com, there's a free resources page. I've got some free business plan templates there that we've created for banks you can download and use. Because look, a plan is, I know, boring, but again, it forces you to think it all through. Where am I going to get the money? Who's my market, as we just talked about? Who's going to be on my team? How am I going to operate this business? It all goes into a plan. And a good plan can be 10 pages. It doesn't have to be a book. And it just should take you for the first 2 years of your business. Update it after that, because things are going to change, right? You might get into a different business because of a pivot. And third, of course, is make a plan to get the money. Now, that's going to come from doing your business plan, but every new business needs a startup budget. And I'll tell you my formula for a startup budget, which is I think pretty solid. There's two types of money you need. You need working capital, and you need capital. Capital expenses are the hard costs, right? Signage, maybe some legal fees up front to incorporate. Maybe you need some equipment, things you're going to spend money on and use over time. And then you need working capital. That's the soft stuff, the marketing cost, the rent, the wages. Hey, maybe even some grocery money for you, right, to live on for the first 6 months of your business. So you take the capital cost you need to pay up front. You take working capital for 6 months, whatever that might be. Add maybe 10% as contingency, just in case your numbers are off a bit. And boom, there's your startup budget. And once you have that number, my God, I need $110,250. Now all of a sudden you can go out and start to look at where you can raise that, right? Do I have that much on my own bank account? No. I'm going to need to go and talk to a bank or talk to some relatives, maybe talk to the guy who owns a business down the street. All of a sudden you're going to take action and get out there and raise that money. So, and to recap, test your product, make a plan, figure out your costs. Those are some real tangible things you can do. And I'll throw in a fourth: take on a mentor, right? Talk to someone you can get their help to help you run this business, and who's willing to share their expertise with you. It doesn't take a whole lot to find a mentor. Let people know you're looking, and they'll come along.
Okay, one more piece of advice that I want you to share, if possible. Since this is the Unsure Entrepreneur podcast that you're a part of, what if the person is unsure? What action can they take? So they don't have an idea. They don't know if it's for them. What can they do to take action?
So they're looking for a business idea?
Well, they're trying to decide if they even want to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, well, if possible, go and job shadow an actual entrepreneur. Look, it's
Great
the same
idea.
thing. It's the same thing as going to school. It kills me about higher education. People spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. You've got kids in school, and we hope that they've made the right choice to go into engineering or business or medicine. But maybe take a week and go and job shadow a doctor to make sure it's the thing you want to do, right? Oh God, I don't like blood. That's a real problem. If you want to go into medicine, you can do the same thing in small business. A lot of people would love the free labor. Wouldn't you like someone to help you out for a week or even a couple of days, right? And if you job shadow that person, you're really going to get insights into what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So I would do that first. Secondly, go and attend trade shows, like you talked about, our friend Andrew. Go to trade shows, go to consumer shows, soak up some ideas, walk around, talk to people. You're going to get inspired. Something's going to hit you there.
All right, we have one more question that came in, and then we'll end things. And just shout out to Women in Biz Network. If you're looking for some additional support, register your business on our website, free of charge, and also lots of opportunities to connect with our community and get the support you need for your business. So lastly, we have a final question from Terrence, who says, I'm just now starting out and using my job to finance my business. I sometimes perform poorly at my job when I focus on the needs of my business. I can relate to that. What suggestions do you have to find that balance? That's a really good question, Terrence.
Well, maybe you should answer this one, Lee. You seem to be living it, but Bob, set some boundaries for your business, right? You got to keep that job. Don't get fired. The boss
Mm.
finds you working on your business when you're supposed to be working on your job. That's big trouble. Set some boundaries for yourself. It's going to be a lot. Work at it before work, work at it at lunch, work at it in the evenings and the weekends until there's enough money there in your new business to replace that job income.
Yeah, look at maybe getting up early certain days a week or having a slightly later night. But yeah, when you're at work, I did fall victim to this because I do teach, and I found that I was trying to like answer emails and work on my business, throughout the day when I wasn't in the classroom. Or when the students were working on a project or doing something, I would, allow myself to do a task or two, and then it just got me off focus.
Mm.
So now I have a really strong rule that when I'm teaching, I don't look at my phone. I don't look at my computer. I don't try to do any tasks related to my business. I just keep it when I'm that's my job when I'm in the classroom throughout the day. I don't mar myself with multitasking. And I think there's a lot to be said for multitasking being a sin for it's just not good for your sanity. So try to focus on one thing at a time, and when you're at work, focus on work. When you're working on your business, focus on your business.
And
Try to
no,
keep
this
it
is this is
separate.
temporary, right? Eventually, you're
Yeah,
going to switch gears and quit the job and go to the business. It's just a rough patch.
exactly. Yeah. So just persevere through it, stay focused, and you got this. Well, thank you, everybody. It's now 3:01, so we've empowered your hour. I think I'm feeling pretty strong. Strong feeling that we have. There were a lot of questions that came in, so this is obviously a hot topic, Roger. So
Hmm.
get that book done. I know you will, and I'm excited to promote it when it comes out, because I think it's a great concept for a book that we need. Thinking about whether or not we're fit for this.
Well, you're
So
you're in there, so you better promote it.
you betcha, you can count on it. So
Thank
Roger, is there any parting words that you want to share? What can people do to connect with you? What offers can you give them? Anything that you want to share as our final parting words?
Well, sure, and thank you, Lee, for having me on. It's always a treat to connect with you, and I could talk to you for hours.
Me
But
too.
check out the website rogerpierce.com and the Unsure Entrepreneur podcast available on any streaming platform.
Amazing. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in for another change making episode of the Empower Hour podcast and live stream. Next week, we will be back once again on next Thursday, and our guest is Susan Diaz, who is an AI expert. So, looking forward to talking about AI in business. And yeah, until we meet again, change makers. Bye, everyone.